I'm Rachel. My family remembers every bridal shower, every wedding, every baby tooth a cousin's kid loses. But somehow they forgot my birthday. All 83 messages in the group chat, decor themes, flower votes, even cookie flavors, yet not one word about me. The worst part? When I pointed it out, my brother said, "Oops. Where are you watching this from? Drop your location in the comments. I'd love to see where this story is reaching hearts like yours." I came home with a dozen cupcakes. Lemon raspberry swirl, my favorite. I'd even splurged on the fancy pink box and ribbon from that overpriced bakery near my office. Because sometimes you have to celebrate yourself, right? I was humming when I opened the door to my apartment. Just a small smile on my face, nothing dramatic. I'd promised myself this birthday I'd feel okay. I'd make it okay. But the moment I kicked off my boots and set the box down on the kitchen counter, my phone buzzed again. Family group chat, 83 unread messages. That's not usually a bad sign. We're a big, messy, emoji-loving clan. Cousins in 5 states, aunts who type in all caps, and my mom, queen of forwarding inspirational quotes from 2009. I opened it, expecting, hoping for a belated birthday flood. Maybe someone posted a photo of me as a kid, face covered in frosting. Maybe Chloe, my cousin getting married next month, had said something kind. But as I scrolled through the messages, one after another filled with gifs of champagne glasses and pink glitter fonts, I felt something uncoil, tight and ugly in my chest. Not one message was about me. Nothing. 83 messages, all about Chloe's bridal shower. I read them all, the signature cocktails being tested. The garden glam theme, the arguments over table runners, people RSVPing with delight. "Can't wait to celebrate you, Chloe." And me, nothing. Not even a throwaway happy birthday, Ratch. I blinked. Maybe I missed it. I scrolled up. Then down, then back again. The only notification with my name was a tag from Chloe asking if someone could send her my address so they could mail the invites, except I hadn't gotten one. I checked my mailbox again just in case. Empty. Just a grocery store flyer and a bill I didn't want to open. I sat down at the kitchen table, still holding my phone. My cupcakes sat untouched on the counter. I hadn't even lit a candle. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. Then I typed, "Wow, 83 messages and not even a happy birthday." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. I waited. Finally, my brother Michael replied, "Oops." Just that, oops. My little brother, the one who used to cry if I left for school without hugging him. The one I used to defend on the playground. Oops. The group went quiet after that. Not a single person followed up. No, "Oh my gosh, so sorry, Rachel." No, "Happy birthday." Even as an afterthought, just silence. My apartment, which had moments ago felt cozy with its little gold string lights and the smell of vanilla candles, now felt like a waiting room with no windows. I leaned back in my chair, blinking up at the ceiling. It wasn't like I wanted a parade. I didn't expect a skywriter or a flash mob, but to be completely erased, to be less important than monogrammed napkins. That hurt. It wasn't just that they forgot. It was the ease with which I could be left out. I didn't matter enough to be missed, and that's when my phone rang. I jumped a little, but it wasn't my mom or my sister or even Chloe. It was Lily, my cousin's kid. She's 10. She FaceTimed me from her bedroom, holding up a handmade card with glitter glue smeared across the front. "I made this in class," she said proudly. "It's late 'cause I had to let it dry. But happy birthday, Auntie Rachel." My throat tightened so fast I almost couldn't get the words out. "Thank you, sweetheart," she grinned. "Mom says we're all going to Chloe's party. Will you be there? I want to sit next to you." I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. "We'll see, Lil." She waved before hanging up, off to show her dog the card she made. I stared at the frozen screen of our call, my reflection barely visible in the corner. That little girl remembered me. None of the adults did. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and opened the cupcake box. The icing had smudged a little from the walk home. I picked the one with the tiny sugar daisy on top and stuck a birthday candle in the middle. Lit it, sat alone, and made a wish I shouldn't have had to make. I don't know how long I sat there after the candle burned out. The wax dripped into the frosting like some forgotten ritual. I hadn't even made a wish. Not really. What do you wish for when your family forgets you exist? Eventually, I picked up my phone again, not to scroll for comfort, not to post a thanks for all the birthday wishes lie to save face. Just back to the group chat. I needed to see it all again, needed to know if I was overreacting, if maybe, just maybe, I'd missed something. I scrolled slowly this time, pausing on every message. Chloe had started the thread 2 days ago, so excited to start planning. I want something dreamy but not over the top. Garden glam vibes, cherry sparkles, then came the storm of responses. Aunt Claire offered to bring those chocolate truffles she always makes. Uncle Marty said he'd check if the country club patio was still available for rentals. My mom sent a photo of 3 different centerpieces. Michael suggested a Spotify playlist. Even Jenna, who lives in Florida now and rarely shows up for anything, voted on napkin colors. I read every single one. My name didn't appear. Not once. Not even a "Ratch, you'd love this" theme. Or "Can someone forward this to Rachel?" I wasn't in the loop. I wasn't even on the map. And then I saw it buried near the middle, a message from Chloe. Just confirming addresses. I have Aunt Claire, Jenna, Michael, Mom, Dad, the Coopers, Lily, and Max. I stopped breathing. She'd listed 10 people, 10 names. I wasn't one of them. The implications settled in like fog creeping under a locked door. They hadn't forgotten to mention me in the chat. They left me out entirely. I tapped on the message, rereading the names again. Like maybe my name was hiding between the lines. Maybe she just used Mom and meant mine too. But no, those were her parents, not mine. I wasn't invited. Or if I was, it was as an afterthought. A courtesy Chloe hadn't even extended herself. Just a second-hand tag in a sea of glitter and lowercase gushing. I set my phone down and stared at the dim reflection of myself in the black screen. Ache in my chest was quieter now. Less of a punch, more of a dull, expanding pressure. Had this been intentional? Was I that forgettable, that inconvenient, that expendable? I pushed back from the table, suddenly needing to move. I walked to the window, looked out at the rain-slicked Portland street. The world moved on, oblivious. A dog walker passed by in a bright yellow slicker. Somewhere, someone's porch light flickered. My reflection stared back at me in the glass, shadowed and soft. They had to know. Right, someone had to notice I wasn't in the loop. But no one had said a word. And if they didn't notice, if they truly hadn't realized, I didn't know which felt worse. Being erased on purpose or being so small in their lives that my absence didn't register. I walked back to the kitchen, pulled out a chair, and sat again. The half-eaten cupcake stared up at me like an apology I didn't ask for. My hands itched to do something, anything. So I opened my notes app and started typing. Past exclusions. Chloe's graduation party, not asked to speak, even though I was the only cousin who drove 5 hours to be there. Michael's engagement dinner, no one saved me a seat. Mom's retirement brunch, invited last, seated next to the bathroom. Lily's 8th birthday, asked to take pictures but not included in a single one. I stopped at 4, though the list could have gone on. Every memory had been small, dismissible, easy to overlook. Until now, I'd convinced myself it wasn't a pattern, that I was just being sensitive, busy, misinterpreting, but now, the pieces fit too well, the exclusions were real. And this one, this birthday, this wasn't small. It wasn't something you forget by accident. I looked around my apartment. The photos on the wall, me at Cannon Beach with Lily, a laughing selfie with Chloe from 2 summers ago, one of Michael and me at his graduation where I'd held his cap when it got too windy. I remembered every moment. And yet somehow I'd become the invisible one, the one who showed up and held cameras and planned playlists, but was always standing just outside the frame. This time I wasn't even on the guest list. I wiped my eyes and laughed once, bitter and dry. The sound startled even me. Then I stood up and boxed the remaining cupcakes, wrapped them in foil, and slid them into the freezer, because sometimes you have to save the sweetness for later, especially when no one else does. I couldn't sleep. The silence of my apartment was loud in a way that made everything inside me feel frayed. The fridge hummed like it knew something I didn't. The heater kicked on every now and then, like a sigh I was trying not to let out. So I did what I've always done when things feel too big. I grabbed my favorite pen, the one with the little silver star charm on the end, and pulled out a legal pad from the kitchen drawer. If no one wanted to hear me speak, they could read what I had to say. I started with Michael. Dear Michael, I used to think being your big sister was one of the great honors of my life. I cried when you lost your first tooth. I taught you how to ride a bike. But now, I see you can type oops faster than you ever said thank you for the years I showed up for you. The silence you offered on my birthday said more than any insult ever could. Then Chloe. Dear Chloe, you once told me I was your safe person. You cried in my car after prom when no one else knew how badly you wanted to leave early. I held your secrets, your stories, and sometimes your hair when tequila got the best of you. And yet, when it came time to choose who belonged at your wedding, I was a ghost. Not even worthy of a mailed invite. Next was Mom. That one burned. Dear Mom, when I was 7, I broke my wrist and you held my hand through every x-ray. You promised me you'd always make sure I felt seen. But lately, I wonder if you only meant that as long as I made myself small. Your texts are full of clapping emojis and so proud. For everyone else, I haven't seen a how are you from you in months. You used to say I was your shadow. I've realized you stopped turning around to look. I wrote 7 letters in total. One to Jenna for always rolling her eyes when I spoke. One to Aunt Claire for smiling at me while voting me out. Even one to Dad, though his silence was more absence than anything else. By the time I was done, my hand ached. My eyes were dry. The kitchen clock read 3:12 a.m. I stared at the pile of folded papers in front of me, each one neatly written, every sentence sharp and exact. A stack of truth. A chronicle of pain. I imagined sliding each one into a creamy white envelope, writing their names in my cleanest script, dropping them in the mail and letting them carry the sting. But something stopped me. Maybe it was Lily's glitter card, still sitting on the fridge. Maybe it was how tired I felt and not just in my bones. Or maybe it was the quiet understanding that these words, no matter how true, would never be heard the way I needed. They'd call me dramatic, oversensitive, uninvited for a reason. So instead, I slowly picked up each letter and ripped them in half, then again, then into quarters, until all that was left was paper confetti and a small mountain of what-ifs. I didn't need their apologies to know what I was worth. I needed to remind myself. And then, just like that, I knew what I was going to do. Not yell, not beg, not corner anyone with confrontation. I would show up, to the wedding, in person, uninvited, unmentioned, and undeniable. Not to create a scene, not to make anyone squirm, but because I had every right to be there. Because I had been a part of this family long before any floral centerpiece or pastel-themed brunch. They may have forgotten that, but I hadn't. The next morning, I walked downtown and wandered into the Tiffany store like I wasn't heart-bruised and sleep-deprived. The saleswoman asked if I was shopping for a gift. Yes, I said, for someone I used to know very well. I picked a delicate porcelain tea set, robin's egg blue with silver trim. It looked like something out of a movie. Too beautiful, too refined, too much, exactly right. She wrapped it in a perfect box with white satin ribbon and that unmistakable shade of blue. I carried it home like it weighed nothing and everything all at once. That evening, I sat on my balcony watching the sun bleed into the Portland skyline. The air was crisp. My hands were still uncertain. I wasn't going to yell or demand space in the group chat. I was going to take up space where it mattered, right there, at the wedding, dressed in grace, wrapped in dignity, carrying proof that I existed. Not for them, for me. The wedding day bloomed clear and smug, like it had the audacity to be beautiful. I stood in front of the mirror longer than usual, not out of vanity but precision. My dress was a deep forest green, elegant, simple, unapologetic. I twisted my curls into a soft updo and wore the gold earrings Mom gave me on my 25th birthday. That version of her had remembered. I walked into the country club foyer right on time, just as guests were beginning to arrive. Laughter spilled from the bar. Champagne flutes clinked. Strings from a string quartet floated above conversations like polite wallpaper. No one noticed me at first, but then I saw him, my father. He was adjusting his cufflinks near the main doors, fidgeting in that subtle way he does when he's anxious but trying to appear composed. He turned and locked eyes with me. For a second, I saw confusion, then shock, then guilt, thinly veiled by a smile that arrived too late. "Rachel," he said, voice tight as he stepped toward me, we didn't think you were coming." His words hung between us like a fog, heavy, pretending to be harmless. I didn't smile. I noticed. He looked down at his shoes, then back up. You weren't on the RSVP list. That's because I never got the invitation. That stopped him completely. Behind us, more guests arrived, voices, perfume, rustling dresses, but it all faded as the silence between us expanded. You. We're supposed to, he murmured, now visibly uncomfortable. Was I asked softly. His mouth opened and closed like a man trying to recite lines from a script he hadn't rehearsed. I didn't know, he said. About the mix-up. A mix-up. I nodded slowly. A mix-up that lasted 83 messages long, but I'm here now. And I was, standing in the foyer of a wedding I'd been forgotten for, holding a Tiffany gift with a ribbon so perfect it could have made up for years, if ribbon had that kind of power. He reached for something, an apology maybe, but came up empty, just silence. Aunt Claire passed behind him and did a double take when she saw me. Rachel, oh, how lovely to see you. She said it the way someone might react to finding a ghost on their front porch. Not frightened, just caught. I nodded politely. Nice to see you too, Claire. There was a pause, 3 heartbeats too long before she drifted off, clearly rattled. Then Dad said, You know, Rachel, this day is about Chloe. I blinked. And, he straightened, I just don't want any tension. I tilted my head. So don't create it. That was the first moment he truly looked at me. His face softened. And then he stepped aside, letting me through the foyer into the heart of the wedding. The country club glistened, floral arches, glowing candles, the scent of eucalyptus and vanilla. Everything coordinated. Perfect. But I walked through like I belonged because I did. Eyes followed me, not all in judgment, some in surprise, a few in embarrassment, but none could look away. I hadn't yelled. I hadn't thrown the letters, but I had shown up. And sometimes showing up uninvited, unflinching, is louder than anything you could scream. It was like threading a needle through a room stitched with tension. I walked slowly, deliberately past tables of mingling relatives, some I hadn't seen in years, others who hadn't acknowledged me in months. Their conversations dipped in volume as I passed. Heads turned, then quickly turned away. I didn't meet their eyes. I wasn't there for them. I scanned the room until I saw her, Chloe, standing near the flower arch with her bouquet, cheeks flushed, surrounded by bridesmaids in blush satin and forced laughter. She was beautiful. A soft, radiant kind of beautiful. The kind that made people forget she could be sharp, too. I approached with quiet steps. One of her bridesmaids, Jenna, saw me first and nudged her gently. Chloe turned. Our eyes met, and something shifted. Her whole expression dropped like a curtain falling. Her smile flickered out, and for one split second I saw something real in her gaze. Rachel, she said. I held out the Tiffany box, wrapped with care, nestled with the weight of both elegance and restraint. For you, I said, voice calm but warm. Chloe didn't move at first. She just stared at the box, then at me. Then she reached out, hands trembling slightly as she took it. She began, then stopped. I reached into my small clutch and pulled out the envelope. There's a note inside, just a few thoughts, not to ruin your makeup. That got a soft laugh from her, barely audible. She tucked the envelope beneath the satin ribbon and held the box like something sacred. I didn't want you to feel erased on your day, I added, and if I almost did on mine. She blinked rapidly, and then tears, real ones. I never wanted you left out, she whispered. I didn't know the invite list got messed up until it was too late. I thought someone else sent yours, I swear. I looked at her, really looked, and for once it didn't feel like a performance. It felt like regret, and maybe even affection. Thank you for still coming, she said, her voice shaking. And in that moment, something warm cut through the ache in my chest. I wasn't forgiven, she wasn't either, but we were human in the same space again. And that was more than I'd expected. She reached out and squeezed my hand before the next round of posed photos pulled her back into bridal orbit. I stepped away quietly, melting into the corner of the room like I'd done so many times before. But this time I carried something different, not vengeance, not bitterness, just peace. Flickering, yes, but real. Reception dinners always feel like plays to me. Everyone in assigned seats, stage lighting from chandeliers, dialogue scripted in small talk and polite chuckles. But this one felt especially thin, like the glue holding the family mask together was starting to crack. I sat at a table near the back, of course, between Great Aunt Margie, who'd already asked twice if I was still single, and a second cousin whose name I didn't remember but who kept showing me photos of her cats in costumes. I wasn't hungry. The wine was too sweet. My dress itched at the seams, but I sat quiet and upright, letting the night swirl around me like a song I didn't request, until I heard my name. It was faint at first, just a flutter of syllables behind me. I leaned back slightly, the edge of my champagne glass near my lips, head tilted just enough to catch it clearly. "She always does this," Jenna's voice murmured, a little too loud for a whisper. "Shows up with a dramatic entrance, a Tiffany box, a handwritten note, please." Someone, probably Michael, by the timbre, chuckled. "She loves making statements. Honestly, I think she wants a scene," Jenna continued. "She feeds off it, like being left out gives her moral superiority." They didn't know I could hear, or maybe they did, and that was the point. I didn't turn around. I didn't flinch. I just stared at the untouched slice of wedding cake in front of me, white frosting perfect and untouched. Their words didn't shock me. They exhausted me. So rehearsed. So predictable. As if my very existence, my very presence, quiet, dressed in grace, gift in hand, was some kind of rebellion. As if grieving your own erasure made you melodramatic. I took a slow sip of water, then excused myself from the table. In the hallway, I leaned against a marble pillar, letting the ambient string music bleed through the closed doors. I wasn't going to cry. Not here. Not now. But I did need to breathe. The chandelier light caught on the rhinestones at the edge of my clutch. My reflection in the brass wall sconce looked too calm, almost composed. Inside, I was screaming. Because how do you keep explaining yourself to people who have already decided what you are? How many years had I been labeled sensitive, difficult, needy, when all I ever wanted was to be seen? I thought of the cupcakes I froze, the letters I shredded, the tea set that now sat on a gift table among toasters and dutiful envelopes. And I wondered, not for the first time, what it would take to stop proving I belonged in this family. Because maybe the real rebellion wasn't showing up. Maybe it was finally knowing I didn't have to. Back at the table, no one said anything when I returned. Aunt Margie asked if I wanted her slice of cake. I declined. I caught Michael glancing at me, then away. Jenna didn't look at me at all. The night kept moving, speeches, first dances, clinking glasses, but the buzz in the air had changed. Not for everyone, just for me. The sparkle on the surface was still there. But underneath, there was a quiet sadness, an invisible grief, not loud, but present. I sat still in it. Not because I wanted to make a point, but because I'd finally realized I didn't need to explain my pain to people committed to misunderstanding it. Time passed. Not in some dramatic, life-altering way, just quietly. Days folded into each other like laundry you forget to put away. The wedding came and went. Photos were posted. Captions poured in. Best day ever. Couldn't be more magical. So grateful for everyone who made it special. Everyone, apparently, but me. No one tagged me. No one mentioned my name. I wasn't in a single photo, though I remembered smiling politely in at least 3 group shots. I checked the mail every day with something I wouldn't quite call hope. Just a flicker. Maybe someone would write. Maybe they'd remember how I showed up anyway. But there was nothing. No text from Michael. No call from Mom. Not even a perfunctory "thanks for the gift" from Aunt Claire. Silence. It was a different kind of erasure this time. Not loud or cruel, just total stillness, like I'd never been there at all. And I would have believed I wasn't if not for one thing, the envelope. It arrived 2 weeks after the wedding. Pale pink, hand-addressed. My name written in looping script I recognized instantly. Chloe. I opened it slowly, heart thudding harder than it should have. Inside was a simple card. Gold-edged, minimal, elegant. "Rachel, your presence at the wedding meant more to me than you know. I'm sorry for everything that got mishandled. I wish I had done more. The tea set is beautiful. It made me cry twice. So did your note. Would you meet me for brunch? My treat, just us. Please say yes. With love, Chloe." I read it 3 times before setting it down, and I cried, not hard, not ugly, just a steady release of something I didn't know I'd been holding. It wasn't a grand gesture. It didn't undo everything. But it was human. A candle in a room where the lights had been off for too long. I messaged her the same day. Me, yes. I'd love to. She picked a quiet bistro near the park. Sunday at 11, outside seating, no pressure. When I arrived, she was already there, nervously twisting her napkin, eyes darting toward the door. When she saw me, she smiled, not wide, not overdone, but real. The kind that acknowledges the mess between you but chooses grace anyway. "I didn't think you'd come," she said. "I almost didn't," I admitted, sitting down. We ordered coffee and eggs, and for a while we talked about nothing. Work, the weather, a show we both used to love but hadn't watched in years. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out my note, the one I'd written on wedding day. "It's folded so many times," she said. "I keep reading it." I looked down. I meant every word. "I know," she said quietly, "and I'm sorry for all of it, for letting you be the one no one notices." I felt something shift inside me, not a resolution, but maybe the beginning of one. "I didn't come for an apology," I told her gently. "I came because you were the only one who saw me afterward." Her eyes filled. She blinked them clear. "I can't fix the family," she said, "but I can try not to be like them." And maybe that was enough. Maybe one person remembering was worth more than a dozen forgetting. As we left, she hugged me tight, quiet, no performance. And for the first time in a long while, I felt warm, not all over, just enough. Mid-December in Portland always feels like a sigh, wet sidewalks, twinkling store windows trying too hard, and people pretending peppermint lattes make up for the ache of the year. I was walking home from work, coat zipped to my chin when the group chat pinged. The one I hadn't seen light up in weeks. The one I had muted after Chloe's brunch, not out of spite but self-preservation. My fingers hovered over the screen. Family festivities, the name alone made my stomach turn. I opened it. The newest message was from Aunt Claire. "Christmas Eve at our place again. 6 p.m. start. Hot cider, Secret Santa, and pajama theme RSVP so we can get a head count. Love you all." Then a flood of responses. Jenna, "Yay! Can I bring peppermint brownies again?" Michael, "I'll bring the trivia game, and cider if someone else brings a car." Mom, "Excited to see everyone, already making the cranberry sauce." I scrolled, and then I saw it. A message from Uncle Marty. "Adding Rachel now, she probably didn't see this yet." Rachel. Not Rachel, Rachel with 2 L's, like a typo from someone guessing my name on a form or an autocorrect that no one cared to fix. I stared at it, my name almost, but not. The implication was clear. I hadn't been in the original thread. I'd been tacked on, an afterthought stuck in like a missing puzzle piece someone found under the couch after the picture was already complete. I typed nothing. My chest tightened, but not in the same sharp way it had before. This was slower. Heavier. I wasn't angry, just tired of being the appendix to every plan. The afterthought someone adds so they won't look heartless. The name they can't even bother to spell right. I scrolled further just to see. Everyone had replied, coordinating cookies and carols and what color pajamas to wear. And me? Nothing. No direct message, no call. No, "Hey, we'd love to see you." Just Rachel. I locked my phone and slipped it into my pocket, the cold of the night creeping under my gloves. I passed a store window with a holiday display, miniature trains circling a fake snow village. A sign read, "Family is everything." And I thought, is it? Because sometimes family isn't warm, sometimes it's tepid, obligatory, performative, and sometimes it forgets your name. I made it home and dropped my keys on the counter with more force than necessary. My apartment was quiet except for the heater clicking to life. I kicked off my boots and sat at the edge of the couch, staring at the Tiffany box Chloe had returned to me after the wedding. "She said it was too beautiful to keep," I murmured aloud to no one. I pulled out my phone again and stared at the chat. I could respond, could play along, could RSVP and wear plaid pajamas and act like everything was fine. But that name, Rachel, it wasn't just a mistake. It was a symbol of how far removed I'd become, of how little effort they'd made to remember who I actually was. And maybe the saddest part? No one corrected it, not even Chloe. I could have stayed home. I could have taken that misspelled text as a final warning shot and slipped into the kind of peaceful silence people mistake for weakness. But I didn't. I went. Not out of hope, not even out of spite. I went because sometimes you need to see things for yourself, in their full and uncomfortable clarity, before you can finally let go. I didn't bring much. Just two small, carefully wrapped gifts. One for Chloe, who had at least tried, and one for Lily, who, with her glitter glue birthday card, had unknowingly kept me tethered to the softest thread of love. I arrived at 6:10 p.m. because being exactly on time felt too eager and fashionably late felt performative. Aunt Claire's house glowed with artificial warmth. Light-up reindeer in the yard, a wreath on the door, Bing Crosby crooning from inside. When I rang the bell, it was Lily who opened it. Her face lit up. "Rachel!" she squealed, flinging her arms around me. Not Rachel. Not some version of me people forgot to update. Just Rachel, real and solid. I held her tightly, the way you hug a memory you don't want to lose. Inside, the house smelled like cloves and citrus and the unmistakable tension of a family pretending everything's fine. Everyone was there, most still in their coats, drinks in hand, trading laughs like currency. But as soon as I stepped in, it was like someone dimmed the lights just a little. Chloe crossed the room to greet me first, eyes soft with something that might have been gratitude or apology. She hugged me, no words, just pressure. Then she saw the gift in my hand. "You didn't have to," she whispered. "I know," I said. "That's why I did." I gave Lily hers next, a small watercolor kit and a notebook with her name embossed in silver foil. Her eyes widened. "For me?" "Only for you," I said, "because you remembered." She didn't need to ask what I meant. Her small hand found mine and gave it a squeeze. I sat down near the edge of the room, uninvited to any particular cluster of conversation. No one asked me what I brought for Secret Santa. No one offered me cider. Jenna was by the fireplace passing around mugs that read merry and bright, followed by scarves that still had price tags on them. Like someone had raided a department store's last-minute shelf and dumped the finds into a gift bag. "Ooh, who got the glitter reindeer one?" someone called. "Ugh, I hope I don't get the pine-scented candle again," another laughed. It felt like a workplace holiday party you attend out of guilt. No one was listening to anyone else. Laughter was too sharp, like everyone was performing happiness instead of feeling it. I sat and watched. Not bitter, just present, noticing, like how Michael didn't look me in the eye but clinked glasses with everyone else. Or how Mom offered me a plate of cookies but forgot I was allergic to almonds again. Or how Jenna saw me holding my coat and said, "Oh, are you leaving already?" before I'd even taken it off. I didn't answer. I wasn't there for them. I was there for closure. And I got it. Because when you walk into a room that used to hold so much power over you and realize it feels empty, something inside you lets go. This wasn't Christmas. Not the kind I remembered, where laughter was unforced and presents were personal and hugs didn't come with awkward disclaimers. This was something else. A pageant of pretense. And I was just an extra with no lines. The whispers started before dessert. I wasn't meant to hear them. Those kinds of barbed little murmurs never are, but I did. Words always find their way to the ears they're meant to pierce. It started near the kitchen, in that false privacy space where people think walls are soundproof because their guilt is quiet. "She didn't even bring a Secret Santa gift," Jenna muttered, voice sticky with disdain. "I swear Rachel loves playing martyr." Aunt Claire made that hum she does when she's trying to appear neutral. "I just think it's sad withholding gifts like that, punishing everyone for a silly mistake." Silly mistake. My name. Forgotten, my presence, questioned, my birthday, ignored, but sure silly. I didn't say anything. Just stood at the far end of the hallway sipping cider that was already lukewarm. It tasted like cinnamon and performance. Later, near the fireplace, I heard my Uncle Ted, 2 wines in, say under his breath, "She's always been cold. Girl's got ice in her bones." Cold. Because I brought 2 gifts instead of 20. Because I didn't clap when someone unwrapped a novelty mug that said Santa's favorite. Because I didn't pretend the room hadn't once erased me whole. But what they didn't understand, what they refused to see, was that silence isn't always cold. Sometimes it's sacred. A shield. A quiet refusal to play the role they've written for you. I didn't need to raise my voice. My presence was already loud enough in a room that expected my absence. And still, I watched them. The laughter felt thinner now, like it echoed off walls that weren't used to carrying so much guilt. Someone handed out cookies in a tin that still had a price sticker on the bottom. Someone else argued over whose turn it was to host New Year's. No one looked at me directly, but I saw the side glances, the tension clinging to the edges of smiles. They thought I was punishing them. That's the part that made me ache the most, as if generosity was something I owed them, no matter how they treated me. As if my love was on trial because it wasn't delivered with a bow. But real love doesn't have to perform. It shows up with intention, not obligation. And I had shown up, not to punish, to witness, to remember, to see the hollowness for what it was, because I was in the room, yes, but I wasn't of it, not anymore. It felt like I was watching a play I'd outgrown, mouthing along to lines I no longer believed. Rachel, the reliable one. Rachel, the peacekeeper. Rachel, the afterthought, until her silence became too loud. I sat quietly in the corner near the mantel next to Lily, who was humming to herself while drawing snowflakes in her notebook. She'd stuck one of the silver foil snowflake stickers on my hand. "You didn't get a present," she said, glancing up at me. I smiled. "That's okay, I already have one." She tilted her head. "What is it?" "You," I said, and I meant it. Because in this room full of people who couldn't be bothered to know me, this little girl had remembered my birthday. She saw me, not for what I was supposed to be, but for who I really was. Across the room, I caught Chloe watching me again. Her expression was hard to read. Not shame, not pity, something closer to understanding, maybe even quiet admiration. She didn't come over. She didn't need to. Because in this moment, surrounded by tinsel and artificial joy, I realized something simple but seismic. You can be physically present and still not belong. And that doesn't make you less. It makes you aware. It makes you free. I could feel it building. The weight of every swallowed word, every fake smile, every ghosted memory in the room. It pressed against my ribs like a final breath that didn't want to be held anymore. Lily had fallen asleep beside me, her head resting gently on my arm, the crinkled edge of her drawing clutched in her small fingers. I looked down at her. A soft, sleeping bundle of sincerity in a house that confused proximity for connection. And I knew. It was time. I stood slowly, careful not to wake her, and brushed the snowflake sticker still clinging to the back of my hand. Across the room, someone was starting a carol sing-along. Another group was shouting over who'd burned the cider. But as I walked to the fireplace, a hush began to ripple. They knew something was coming. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Sometimes calm is louder than fury. "Thank you for inviting me," I said, turning to face them all. A few heads turned fully toward me, most only shifted slightly. Jenna froze mid-sip. Michael blinked. Aunt Claire looked at the ceiling like it might hold a better version of this moment. "I wanted to say that out loud," I continued, "because this might be the last time." Chloe's brow furrowed gently. She stood now too, but didn't interrupt. "Next year I'll be away for the holidays," I said clearly. "I've already started planning it, somewhere warm, quiet, with people who don't need me to perform to be welcomed." I let it land. Not like a mic drop, more like a pin placed carefully into the center of a balloon. The kind of pop that doesn't make a sound but still changes everything. Someone muttered "wow" under their breath. I ignored it. Instead, I turned to Chloe and offered a smile that held gratitude and goodbye all at once. "Thank you for the brunch," I said. It felt like actual love. Her eyes shimmered, but she nodded, slowly, meaningfully. Then I crossed back to the couch where Lily now stirred gently. I leaned down and kissed her forehead. "Keep drawing," I whispered, "and keep remembering." She mumbled something in her sleep, something like "snow angel," and I hoped for her sake that she would always hold on to the parts of family that still had magic. I grabbed my coat. No one moved to stop me. No one offered a plate of leftovers. No "drive safe" or "see you soon." And that silence, that gaping pause where warmth should have been, confirmed what I already knew. They hadn't changed, but I had. As I stepped toward the front door, the lights behind me shimmered across garland and glass, casting soft shadows on the walls. The laughter resumed, hollow but familiar. My hand touched the doorknob. And then behind me a chair scraped. Footsteps. It was my mother. She opened her mouth, but no words came, just silence. A kind I'd once bent over backwards to fill, not anymore. I gave her a nod, distant but not cruel, and stepped outside into the cold. The air hit my skin like a baptism. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was running from anything. I was walking toward myself. The cold wrapped around me like clarity. I didn't rush down the steps. I didn't look back. I just walked, each step measured, as though the snow beneath my boots needed to hear me say, I was here. I mattered. You just refused to see me. Behind the frosted windows, the lights twinkled on. Laughter rose again, forced and fragmented. But something had shifted. A hush had settled in that living room, like an echo left behind after a door closes. And I knew they felt it too. Not regret, not immediately, but the discomfort of realizing the background character had quietly rewritten her script, that the girl they assumed would always bend had finally stopped. I imagined them blinking in awkward silence, Michael trying to change the subject, Aunt Claire rummaging for another bottle of wine, Uncle Ted making some joke that didn't quite land. But no one would say what they were really thinking, because to name it would be to admit they'd lost something, that I had given them 1,000 chances to be kind, and they had chosen convenience every time. The driveway glittered with frost. My breath left small clouds behind me, soft and visible, unlike all the words I'd swallowed over the years, the ones that had gone unnoticed, unheard. But tonight they hung in the air like constellations, guiding me out of the shadows. I reached my car, placed the gifts I'd received, fewer than ever, yet somehow still too many, on the passenger seat, and slid behind the wheel. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat there, hands on the steering wheel, eyes closed, heart beating steady. And slowly a smile curled at the edge of my lips, because I'd done it. Not the dramatic gesture they feared, not the confrontation they expected, something quieter and stronger. I'd withdrawn my participation in their curated story. I'd written a new chapter, one where I didn't need to explain myself to be valid or beg to be invited just to exist. They would go on, of course, posting photos, planning the next group dinner, using the same family group chat with the same inside jokes. But now, every time they saw an empty chair at the next gathering, they'd feel the outline of my absence. Not loud, but unmistakable. And maybe one day they'd ask each other why. Maybe they'd realize it wasn't about one forgotten birthday, or one misspelled name, or one set of unwrapped gifts. It was about years of being the invisible glue that held things together, until I decided not to stick anymore. And in the quiet of that car, with snow beginning to fall in soft flakes, I realized, you don't need a reckoning. You just need an exit. One graceful, undeniable exit that leaves the room wondering what they miscalculated, and who you might become without them weighing you down. Exactly 1 year later, I stood beneath the terracotta glow of the Marrakesh sun, birthday candle flickering on a slice of fig tart, the kind of dessert I would have never picked back home. A gentle breeze rustled the courtyard palms. Laughter floated over the mosaic-tiled walls of the riad like music made by strangers. And somehow, I didn't feel alone. Not the way I used to. Not the kind of alone where your name is misspelled by people who should have memorized it by now. This was something softer. Something free. I'd booked the trip on a whim, well, not a whim exactly. More like an act of reclamation. A birthday gift to myself after decades of trying to be the good daughter, the understanding cousin, the one who made allowances for being overlooked. This year, I didn't check the group chat. I didn't wait for texts that never came. I didn't sit by the phone pretending it was okay to be forgotten. I planned my own joy. I explored the souks in the early morning light, bargaining for spices with a smile that didn't have to be forced. I let my hair go wild in the desert wind. I ate alone at candlelit cafes and never once felt the urge to scroll through old messages just to feel remembered. The riad owner, a woman named Safia, surprised me with that fig tart. She didn't know much about me, just that it was my birthday. And yet her kindness felt more real than every obligatory gift I'd ever unwrapped at those family Christmases. There's something sacred in being seen by someone who has no reason to. That night, I pulled out the only postcard I'd brought with me, hand-painted, soft pink with a gold-foiled sun in the corner. I addressed it carefully. To Lily, Portland, Oregon. Inside, I wrote, "Thank you for remembering. You were my favorite gift that day. Love, Rachel." I dropped it in the postbox outside the riad, imagining her small hands tearing it open, eyes wide. Maybe she'd stick it in her notebook beside her drawings. Maybe she'd show it to Chloe or ask what reclamation means if she read that word in the tiny cursive at the bottom. Either way, she'd know I meant it. Because sometimes one real connection is worth more than a dozen hollow ones. I stayed in Morocco for 2 more weeks. I met a retired teacher from Montreal who taught me how to say no in 3 dialects of Arabic. I shared mint tea with a Dutch couple celebrating their anniversary. I watched the sunrise over the Atlas Mountains, wrapped in a wool shawl I'd haggled for like a local. No one here knew who I used to be, and that oddly made me more myself than ever. I wasn't someone's afterthought. I wasn't someone else's shadow. I wasn't even Rachel the Reliable. I was just Rachel, whole, untethered, warmed by my own light. On the flight home, I journaled for hours, not out of pain, but gratitude for the hard clarity, for the silence that showed me who I wasn't, and for the chance to begin again on my terms. They never did send a birthday card. Not Michael, not Mom, not even a text from Jenna. But I didn't need their acknowledgement anymore, because I finally understood. Love isn't love if you have to earn it by shrinking. And family is less about blood than about presence. About who shows up, who remembers, who listens when your voice trembles and still leans in closer. I'd spent most of my life trying to be invited in. This year, I invited myself out, and I found something better waiting for me. Chosen love, unexpected warmth, and the quiet, humming joy of no longer needing permission to exist. Have you ever found more love in a stranger's kindness than in years of tradition? Let me know in the comments. And if this story meant something to you, share it with someone who needs reminding. You don't need their table to have a seat in this world. Build your own. Thank you for walking with me.